Oh, good morning, Sabrina.
Good.
Welcome to my channel, to my place. So I call this the flow channel because, as you know, I love the flow and how we can get into the flow and working with ourselves. So that's just the name of my channel. And for all of you listeners, I have the best person I could possibly have on this call today. And this is a person that I have been working with for, I think it's almost 5 years now. And she is the queen of working with yourself, personal development. She has done that for, I would say, 20 plus years and really working on the inner work, so to speak. You know what's inside of you and how can you develop that, because I truly um, believe it starts there. If you want to grow as a human being in your role, in your professional, it starts with the inner work, and that's what Sabrina Rising is doing. And I'm so happy to have you here today, Sabrina. And I know it's early morning for you because you are located in Los Angeles and I'm in Europe right now. So I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit. What is it that you do? Who are you? And yeah, share who
Oh,
you are
yeah.
and welcome. And warmly welcome.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you. We've had a very beautiful and a profound 5 years together, developing inner work, as you say, and developing your awareness and ability to sort of step into your power. So it's been an honor to facilitate that journey for you. I am an intuitive guide and a facilitator. And so I have been facilitating inner work, and my specialty is trauma release, early childhood conditioning from, the patterning that we experience in our early childhood environments, learning to take control of our mental health and dealing with the issues like anxiety and depression and addiction and anything that really keeps us trapped in destructive patterns, right? So I
Mm.
help people transform their belief system so that they can, live a life that is more in alignment with what they want and what they desire and what truly makes them happy.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it has been a huge transformation doing the work. And I'm also very proud of that I teach part of your curriculum now. And that has also propelled, I would say, the transformation on my clients, for my clients. So it's, yeah, it's truly magical how you
I
do
mean,
it and what you do. Yeah.
amazing, amazing. And you're doing great work too. I know that you're helping a lot of people with your work and your coaching and your speaking engagements and so on. So I'm very grateful for this connection.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, great. So we were discussing just before we started this recording to have a topic for today, and I, both you and I believe it's start with awareness. So I'm thinking of, you know, talking around that topic, awareness. What
Yeah.
is it, and why is it important? Why do we start with awareness in our personal development journey? So.
Yeah. So awareness is everything, right?
Mm,
And it's our ability to uh, know ourselves, right? Our ability to pay attention to what's happening within ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, our physical sensations. Without awareness, we can't really have an honest look at where we are in our lives, right? We can't really, look at our level of happiness, our level of joy, our level of anxiety or fear, and so on. So it takes awareness to be able to honestly assess, how we feel and what we'd like to create, right? So that's always the first step. Whether you're dealing with addiction, the first step is the awareness that there is an issue, right? We have to be able to name that issue. If you're dealing with fear or trauma, the first step is really acknowledging that there's something that doesn't feel right, right? There we are, holding this kind of energy. And so, we have to be able to name what's there. And then with awareness, we can develop our ability to observe and just, know when we're being triggered, right?
Mm.
When we are, out of alignment, right?
Mm.
So becoming aware of certain patterns is life changing, right? Because now we start to understand ourselves. We understand how we operate. We understand what triggers us. We understand what drives us, what moves us, what we feel drawn to. We learn to know ourselves, right? And this is
Mm.
the work of self mastery, is knowing ourselves, right?
Mm.
And we can't do that without awareness. This is really the first step in the journey. It's actually, the bigger part. Once we know, then the actions become more clear. We understand what steps we need to take in order to have the things we want, right? And so, there's an expression in inner work that says you don't know what you don't know, right? And when something is in your blind
Yeah.
spot and you don't know it, you can't change it. And I think, and I'm sure you see this in your work as well, Malin, most humans are not connected to the life inside of them.
I was
Right?
going to say, because I meet a lot of leaders, I work with executives, right? Managers
Yeah.
and their teams, but especially executives. And they are, I mean, they are so clever and so brilliant and, high performers in their work. And still they neglect, I would say, themselves and their needs. So it's really starting with awareness. And sometimes I
It
find
is.
it hard for them to, yeah, difficult to know for them, why is this important, why do I need to be
Yeah.
aware of myself and my feelings.
This is a really important a point that you bring up, because I think so many of us, especially those that are successful in the world, and they're high achiever and high performer, it's a shift in perception, right? We're instead of looking at what you can create or what the outcomes are, what can I produce or what can I make good in the world, when we are focused on outcomes, we can't necessarily be connected to what's happening within us, right? So we turn our focus to how we feel and what brings us joy, and what comes easy, what feels natural, what feels organic, what feels healthy for us. When we bring our focus to that, then we find that we're still able to achieve success. We just
Mm.
do it in ways that are much more flowful. As you said, you love the flow. That's the flow. The flow is being in alignment with what feels good, what resonates for us. I had a career in corporate, for
Mm.
almost 10 years before I made the shift. And I remember being very caught up in that idea of making things happen, performance, producing, being successful, having a good salary, having good results in sales and marketing. And when we push ourselves to manipulate outcomes, oftentimes we can achieve success, but that success always comes at a cost.
Mm.
Right? It usually costs us our mental health, our emotional well-being, maybe our family relationships,
Mm.
personal relationships. There's always something that gives. When we live in the flow,
What's the
right?
difference there, because we can still, so I, as I've been working with this now, I
Yeah.
know we can still have that, what we, striving for or fighting for in the corporate world, or
Mhm.
as a business result,
Yeah,
but
you can
we
still have
do it
success.
differently, right?
It's all in
Yeah.
how you do it. It's all
Yeah.
in how you approach it, right? And
Mm.
so if we approach it, the difference is fear. So
Mm.
fear drives urgency, performance, results, deadlines, financial goals, whatever the sales goals are for the organization or for the individual. So, there is a fear that we have to, make business happen. We have to do this. We have to be successful. There's a real force that drives that
Mm.
isn't natural. It's not conducive to human wellness. Okay. And this could be a sort of a revolutionary concept, especially for those that are in business and succeeding and so on,
Mm.
because when we shift that perspective, and now we say, okay, I'm just going to focus on doing the things that bring me joy, that feel good, that are natural for me, that are, that come easily for me, my, unique gifts that I don't really have to try hard about. I'm going to create things because I feel inspired to do them. I'm going to take inspired
I
action,
love that. I
right?
absolutely love that.
Right.
So where do one start? How do we do that? Because for me and for other people in this, I mean, business, it's natural, more natural anyway. But for someone who have never done that, go with what do I enjoy and go with what flows. How do one start? Where do we start?
Well, we start with awareness, right?
Mhm.
We're bringing back the conversation back to your original topic. So we have to develop the awareness to be able to honestly assess where we are and how we feel. And then we have to develop the willingness to let go of certain patterns of behavior. So a willingness in inner work, willingness is the key that opens all states of higher consciousness. It allows for that paradigm shift, right? Most of us have to hit some kind of burnout or bottom, by the time we get that point, we reach that point of like, I can't keep operating in this way, or I don't feel well, or I don't, there's something has to give. I can't continue to, manipulate myself to make all these results happen. Right. And so, we don't necessarily have to get there, right? Most of us have to get there in order to be willing to make a shift. But if we can develop that willingness to make a shift just through understanding, listening to, a content like this, and just, committing ourselves to a process of, developing health and wellness and so on, we can start to shift the way that we view ourselves and our relationship to the world. What's really important to me? What do I want to create? How do I want to live? Right? So many people don't ask themselves this question. We ask ourselves, what do I need to live? Which is very different than how do I want to live, right? How do I want to live? How do I want to feel every day? What do I want my life to look like? And this is something that anyone can create at any point in time, at any stage of their development. It starts with, coaching, inner work. We need a guide. We need to work with people who can guide us through our own fears of letting go, giving up control, changing the way we do things, doing programs like yours where, or mine, where people are, led through a process where they see that if they, whatever they don't change, they keep choosing, right? And so they have an opportunity to do things differently and in a container that is supportive with enough accountability and enough support to change the way that they operate. Over time, we start to see different results, right? We start to see a shift, start to feel better, we start to feel lighter, we start to feel more peaceful. We realize, wow, this whole time, I've been operating in this way, trying to achieve results. And, now I find that I can simply do this and have, equal or better results and feel better about myself in the process. Right.
Yeah. And
So
you always say, focus on what you want, the how will sort itself out, right? It will,
yeah, this is a huge exercise in trust, though. Okay.
yeah.
And for a lot of people who are in fear and in ego-based consciousness, so
Mhm.
fear, which is a fear-based consciousness, which is what we've been conditioned to live from, right? We have to do things, we have to do this, or else this happens. If we don't do that, then that happens. Like we're very much driven by the fear of failure, or the fear of not having, or the fear of being, of not being enough, or the fear of missing out even. And so these things will drive us. And so for us to be able to sit down and go, I'm not going to participate in this fear anymore, and now I'm just going to trust the universe, or trust, the flow, and be in the flow, and know that everything's going to work out for me, is a big shift in consciousness, right? This is where the support comes in, right? So we need that support. We need to be in the presence of someone who has walked that path and been in this process and seen success in this process, and really has an intimate connection with how to live this way in order to develop this experience for ourselves.
Yeah.
Huge perspective.
Beautiful.
We have to deal with all of our trust issues. You have to go back and do the early child work, early childhood dynamics with mother and father and caregivers and so on, because this is where we learn our values, right?
That's a shift. It's truly a shift when we do that, and profound. Again, I'm using that word because I really have seen it for myself and for my clients, the profound shift that made for them, and for me.
Yeah.
The inner work, the inner child, going back to
Right.
childhood. Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about, awareness, right? It's like we never question the way we were raised. We just believe that that's, the values that we inherited are what's true about us, about the world, about society, about our place in the world. We don't really question it. We just kind of go with it. And even if it doesn't feel well, we don't know any different, right? If you don't have a frame of reference for something that is different, then you're not going to question it. So this is where the awareness really kicks in, and I
Yes.
believe that on a fundamental, soul level, all human beings have an innate desire for personal liberation, for
Yeah.
freedom, for
Me too.
self-expression, for
Yeah.
fulfillment, for peace. We have this desire that drives us,
Yeah.
and sometimes we think that we will find it with enough money, or we'll find it in the right relationship, or we'll find it in the right geographical location, or whatever the external, a source of gratification is. And the fact of the matter is that we can look in all of these places, but nothing will ever satisfy us until we actually turn our attention inwards and start to develop these inner resources to feel this way, right? To feel
Yeah.
that fulfillment. It's
Yeah.
not until we develop the awareness and then, of ourselves, of our essential nature, that we start to find those things. We start to find that personal liberation and that freedom, and we start to disinherit those values that we adopted from our caregivers, and start to rewrite the story of our lives according to
Yeah.
how we want to live. Right.
Yeah, true. And it's within us all the time. So we can, unleash it and yeah, being aware and start to use it. So where would you say, if we would be very practical here right now, where would we start with a practice of awareness? What would you say?
So self-reflection and self-awareness, the easiest, most accessible thing that anyone can do is meditation. It's the
Mm,
best place to start,
yeah.
having a contemplative practice.
Mm,
We can't process anything without stillness.
no.
We just can't, it's like when you sit down to eat a meal, like if you're running down the street, you can't digest your sandwich. You have to be able to sit down to eat it and digest it properly, right? And so
Yes.
we can't process emotions, we can't process ideas, we can't feel inspired. Things don't come to us unless we learn to cultivate stillness, right?
Right.
We have to be able to be with ourselves.
Mm,
And so, meditation can, it can seem scary, or it can seem challenging, especially if you're coming at it with the performance mind, right? The performance mindset, which is like, I have to do this right, and I have to do it every day, and I have to do it consistently because I need results. Like, this is not how we approach meditation. You will be frustrated, right? And so meditation is not about learning to clear the mind or achieve a specific type of outcome. It's really about learning to be with ourselves, exploring with compassion and non-judgment our inner life, my sensations, my thoughts, my emotions. Where am I holding energy? Where do I feel discomfort? Just learning to observe without judgment allows us to develop, what I call equanimity, which is also taught in Vipassana meditation for anyone who's watching and familiar with this modality. Equanimity is just learning to be with ourselves as we are. Right. Learning to
mm,
be with whatever is without
mm,
resistance, without
mm,
wanting to change it. And the
mm.
more we develop this skill, the more we expand our awareness, and we
Yeah.
see all the areas in our lives. We start to see all of
Yeah.
our thinking and all the dynamics that we've set up as a result of our thinking that is painful, right?
Yeah.
That bring us joy, right? That it hurts or feels destructive or it doesn't feel conducive to our wellness. So with this awareness now, we can start to make different choices.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's what really has opened up for me. I can see and I make different choices
Mhm.
because I'm so much more aware of
Yeah.
myself and the surrounding and whatever, especially my own
So-
needs and what's coming.
And
And it happens naturally
yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've also been doing this work for some time, right? So
Mm,
this is important too for people to know, is that it gets easier with time, right? As you develop awareness, like the meditation is such a wonderful tool for anybody, even just beginning, because it helps put a gap
mm,
between, how we experience ourselves and what we observe, right? So there's the witness, which is, what I see, what I observe, what I'm aware of, and then there's what I do with those feelings, with those thoughts, the
mm,
experience having.
Mm.
And so when I can create that gap, in that gap is where I can make all my choices.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
And it's
if I
such a beautiful moment or time, or to sit for a few minutes. Only start with a few minutes, because in our busy lives we need that stillness somewhere during the day. I would say super important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. You know, it's, it should not be seen as a chore or something to do, or something to check off in your list. It really is, an investment in your mental health, in your mindset, setting the tone for the day, just here listening to your own inner guidance. That's the thing. When we're caught up in doing, we don't hear things like our intuition. We can't, we don't all that stuff is not is silenced out because there's just too much other external noise, right?
Mm.
So when we develop stillness, we develop awareness, we develop, an acute way of sensing our experience, what we feel, what we see, what we hear, we develop this sort of more subtle understanding of how we operate and how the universe is operating through us, right?
Mm.
And with this understanding, now we have more information to make conscious decisions about, what we're going to do, how we're going to live, what actions we're going to take, what serves our highest and best good.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. And as I said in the beginning, I could probably talk to you for hours and hours and hours, because your wisdom is like an ocean. It's just incredible. And I love listening to you, and you know that. And so it means a lot that you're here today and sharing a little bit. And all of you who have listened to this or are listening, start somewhere, and no judgment, no pressure, no ticking off the box, just being aware. It starts with awareness, and we are here to support if you like. And where can people find you, Sabrina?
Well, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Intuitive Sabrina. That's my handle. And, I post various content, and I have a free meditation support class coming up as well, if anyone cares to develop their
Yes.
practice as well.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that. And I'm really honored to be here. I'm really so proud of the work that you're doing, Malin. And I know that you're helping so many people. So I encourage everyone in your part of the world to reach out to you as well. And as you say, start somewhere, start
Mm.
with developing awareness so that we can learn to live happy, peaceful, and free.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for being here today, and have a wonderful day today, Sabrina.
Thank you. You too,
See
Malin.
you. Thanks.
Bye.